Hello, welcome back to another video. My name is Gemma and today I'm very excited because I am coming to you with my Women's Prize for Fiction 2025 predictions. So I'm very aware that I'm quite late getting this video organised and up. There are loads of predictions already out. I've watched none of them and I'm desperate to see what people are predicting, but I wanted to get my list confirmed in my own mind and filmed before I go and see all the books that I should have added to my list. So I have 16 books for you. If you are unfamiliar, the Women's Prize awards the best books written by women in the last year. So the eligibility window runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March. So in this case, the 1st of April 24 to the 31st of March 25. And has to be written by a woman, written in English and published in the UK within those dates. So I'm not gonna hamp on. The long list will be announced on the 4th of March. The shortlist then is with us on the 2nd of April, which gives us almost no time to read the entire long list, which is sad. And the Women's Prize usually give us more of an interval between the shortlist and the long list. So that's a bit disappointing, but alas, I will read what I can in that time. And then the winner is announced on the 12th of June. So of the 16 books that I have picked, this is probably more of a wish list than a predictions list. These are all books that I'd really love to see on the list, with maybe the exception of one that I'm a bit lukewarm on, but I think will be there. And I've picked 5 books I have already read that I loved and think deserve some recognition. So those are sort of scattered within the video. So yes, let's just get on with it and I will tell you my 16 books. And the first one is one that I can't really ignore, and that's Sally Rooney's new book, Enter Mezzo, which was published on the 24th of September and is 448 pages. Sally Rooney is a bit of a heavy hitter, particularly in this area of literature, and her new book has been receiving pretty universal praise. I read this in December, and it follows 2 brothers whose father has died and their experience sort of coming to terms with that and also trying to almost rebuild their relationship without their father as a key anchor. And both of these brothers have different challenges. The younger brother is quite gifted at chess, but is perhaps more socially awkward than the older brother, who is a lawyer. And so we sort of see these very different characters trying to navigate grief and trying to navigate their relationships and their relationship with each other. And it was really, really well written. I really enjoyed it. And yes, I'm hearing that this is her best work. It's the only one I've read, so I can't comment, but I can very much see it with a place on this long list. Next up, I have another big hitter in the sort of literary fiction arena, I suppose, and that is Ali Smith's new book, Glyph, which was published on the 31st of August, and it's 288 pages. And this one sounds a bit weird, so I did read the blurb, but I'm still not really sure what it's about. There's 2 children, they come home, there's a line of wet red paint around their house and they have to kind of figure out why it's there. So there's dystopian vibes, there's Kafka vibes, there's something to do with a random horse. And that's really all the blurb tells me. So I don't know, I've never read any Ali Smith. I'm not 100% sure she's for me, but this one sounds quite interesting or intriguing. Intriguing is probably the word. I'm intrigued by this because I have no idea what it's about. So I think Ali Smith could well be in with a shot. She is no stranger to the Women's Prize for sure. Another author that has seen the Women's Prize in previous books is Elif Shafak, and her new book, There Are Rivers in the Sky, which was published on the 8th of August and is 496 pages. I think has a pretty good shot of being on there. This one, the tagline says, the story of one lost poem, 2 great rivers and 3 remarkable lives, all connected by a single drop of water. and this one is set across 3 different perspectives and timelines. We have sort of the ruined city of Mesopotamia, then we have one thread which is on sort of the banks of the River Thames, and then another which is on the banks of the River Tigris in Turkey, and sort of these 3 narratives sort of link together through this poem and this raindrop. Now, when I first heard the premise of this, I thought, no. I have read one book by Elif Shafak before, The Island of Missing Trees, and I really didn't gel with it, though I still want to try some of her backlist stuff. And then when I heard the premise of this, knowing that I didn't like her last book very much, I was like, I'm not sure. Then I read Cloud Cuckoo Land in December, which actually has quite a similar setup, like 3 timelines built together around one text, and that was so well done. So that could either work in this book's favour or against it, because it makes me want to read it, because I think, oh, actually I know that this can be done really well. Also, it's been done really well, so can Elif Shafak offer anything more, or can she even reach the level that Anthony Dorr did in Cloud Cuckoo Land? Or are they just completely different books and it's unfair of me to compare them? Who knows? I have yet to read it, but I expect this will be on a lot of people's predictions list. Next up, and I had to pick one book that was on the Booker Prize, because almost every year one book that's on the previous Booker Prize gets listed for the Women's Prize. And so the book that I think might make it into that slot is Creation Lake by Rachel Kushner, which unfortunately is one of the Booker books that I didn't read last year, though I do own a copy. So yeah, we shall see. But that one was published on the 5th of September and is 416 pages. It was actually shortlisted for the Booker, not just longlisted. And this features a woman who is a spy for hire, and her boss sends her to France, where she has to sort of infiltrate this commune of eco warriors, eco activists, whose leader sort of lives in a cave and thinks we should all go back to sort of primitive ways of living. The premise sounds really interesting, and I was really keen for this book when it was first announced for the Booker, but then it got some pretty lukewarm reviews in this corner of BookTube, so then I kind of lost interest in it a little bit. But yeah, we shall see if that's the one that makes it through to the Women's Prize, or maybe none of them will. Who knows? We will all know on the 4th of March. Next up, I have The Morningside by Tia Obrecht, which was published on the 11th April and is 304 pages. And this is sort of a climate fiction jobby, but it sounds so good with fantastical elements. I'd love to see a book with fantasy elements on the list this year. And we are following a young girl who has moved to Morningside, which is this big apartment complex on an island. It used to be the jewel of the island, but as the sea levels have risen, the island is sort of shrinking, and this complex is starting to become dilapidated. And her mother moved there, and she sort of starts to uncover details about her past, the myths and the stories that come from her homeland. And then one day she comes across the woman who lives in the penthouse, and she is a bit odd, and she has 3 dogs, and maybe those dogs are actually humans in disguise. Who knows? But it sounds fantastic, so I'd really like to read that one. My 6th prediction is Water Baby by Chioma Okariki. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her name. And that was published on the 11th of April and is 400 pages. And this is set on a floating slum outside sort of the limits, or just on the outskirts of Lagos. And we follow a young girl who is trying to sort of escape the future that her father wants for her, and then an opportunity comes up for her to be part of a drone mapping project, and one of her videos goes viral and it completely changes the course of her life. So that sounds interesting. I'm not sure whether there will be 2 climate fiction type books on the list, but I would be happy to see either or both. So I'm hedging my bets a little bit and putting them both on the list. Next up, I have Seaborn by Nuala O'Connor, which is published on the 19th of April and is 208 88 pages. I would say my list is quite first half year heavy. I've got a lot more books from the first half of the eligibility window than the second half, so that could be my undoing here, but alas, these sounded so good I couldn't not include them. And this one is a historical fiction. It's set in Ireland, County Cork in 1703, and we're following the illegitimate child of a sort of well-known lawyer in the town and his maid, and she grows up with a love and an affinity for water and boats and like just being on the ocean. Basically, secrets from the family sort of emerge and they're forced to leave County Cork and they move to California, and this girl's passion for boats and water follow her there. It's described as a swashbuckling adventure, I believe, so yes, I love a bit of swashbuckling, so count me in. Okay, so my 8th prediction is Tiananmen Square by Lai Wen. I saw Scott over at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot review this and said it was fantastic, so that bodes well. This one was published on the 4th of June and is 528 pages and is very much a coming of age story about a young girl growing up in the 70s and 80s in Beijing and going on to take part in the Tiananmen Square riots. And so we follow this girl through her childhood and into adolescence as she sort of starts to understand the reasons behind some of her family's behaviours and the impact of Chinese politics and government on what people are doing, and I guess not liking it very much if she ends up rioting. So yeah, I think it will be a really good mix of character and coming of age story, but also it will educate me a little bit on Chinese politics and that sort of thing as well, so I think it will be like doubly good, so looking forward to that one. In at number 9 I have another one that I have read, and that is Private Rights by Julia Armfield. This was published on the 11th of June, it's 208 pages, and this is Julia Armfield's second novel. I really loved her first one, which was Our Wives Under the Sea, and I also loved this one. This is set in a sort of future world where sea levels are rising. I feel like I have too many climate fiction books on my list. But we follow 3 sisters whose father has died and sort of the legacy that he leaves and the different ways that they interact. The beauty of Julia Armfield's books, both this one and her previous one, is the way that she writes and she creates this atmosphere, and there's like a supernatural element to it and you're not quite sure. It just leaves you feeling uncomfortable all the time, and it's just such a skill, and I would really love to see Julia Armfield nominated this year because I wanted her last book to be nominated as well, so yay for Julia Armfield, please. Next up I have Shy Creatures by Claire Chambers, which was published on the 29th of August and it's 390 pages. And Claire Chambers has been listed before for Small Pleasures, which is a book I really enjoyed, so there's absolutely no reason why she shouldn't be listed again. And this is set in London in the 60s, and we're following a woman who is in her 30s. She is an art therapist at a psychiatric hospital. She's managed to get herself into an affair with a married man who works at the hospital, and one day a man is discovered in a local dilapidated building, and it turns out that he has not left that building for decades, and he's sort of brought to the psychiatric hospital, and it turns out that he has an affinity, a talent for art, or he is an artist, and she then sort of takes on the mantle to try and understand his story and see where he's come from and discover his past. So yeah, sounds quite good. I have heard good things. I do own a copy of that. Thank you very much, Jacqueline, one of my lovely subscribers. I think I had him sent this to me. I thought that was really lovely. So yes, I have a copy here, so I'm hoping that's going to get listed and I can get to that very soon. Next up, I have The City Changes Its Face by Ima McBride, published on the 11th of February this year and is 336 pages. So Ima McBride has also been listed before for, was it A Girl Is a Half-Formed Thing maybe? And so I can imagine her being listed again. This one, again, the blurb is quite sparse, but I think this is going to be more of a character study. It follows a couple, Stephen and Eiley, who have moved into a new flat, and everything is good and lovely, and then 18 months later, Stephen's 18-year-old sort of estranged daughter rocks up, and it sort of shakes things, and Eiley has to sort of reckon with a secret from her past. Is sort of all the blurb gives away, so I don't know too much about it, but I am keen to try this author, and we all know that the Women's Prize loves an Irish author. Okay, we're getting there now, and I have my 12th prediction, which is Small Bomb at Dimpley by Lissa Evans, which was published on the 5th of September and is 310 pages. And this is set in 1945 in a small town or village called Dimpley, and we have a corporal returning from war, and his brother died courageously. The better brother died in the war, and he has come home and inherits sort of like this village. He is like the lord of the manor, so to speak, and he doesn't want it. He doesn't want it, but he kind of has to take it on. And then we have the juxtaposed position of a young woman and her daughter who were evacuated to this town. And they absolutely love it. They love living there. It gives them like a sense of peace and all the rest of it. But this woman perhaps has secrets that are going to come to haunt her, something that she has to do post-war. And yeah, sounds just interesting. And we don't often see books like this on the Women's Prize. And I also want to just throw in a bit of a random one, because we do see random ones. So we shall see. We shall see if that makes it. Next up, I have The Coin by Yasmin Zaher, which was published on the 11th of July and is 223 pages and was longlisted for the Dylan Thomas Prize. And this follows a young Palestinian woman who is living in New York and teaching at a school for disadvantaged boys. She possibly has some mental health issues, and she's got sort of this compulsive nature about her around cleaning and those sorts of things, and her teaching methods are somewhat unorthodox and not loved by the school. And in an attempt to sort of gain back some control, one day she meets a homeless guy and they set up a pyramid scheme selling Birkin bags. So yeah, it sounds odd. I don't think I've ever seen that premise before, but I think it could be really interesting looking at immigration and pyramid schemes, because who doesn't have those two topics in a book together? So we'll see. But it has had quite a lot of praise, so I'm quite keen to give it a go. The last three books on my list are all books I have read. So the first is Hum by Helen Phillips, which was published on the 7th of November and is 272 pages. And this is a dystopian novel. We are in a world where there's not a lot of greenery, etc. left. AI are quite prevalent, and we start following this mother who has had eye surgery to make her unrecognisable to the AI system, and she gets paid for that. And the reason she needs to be paid is because she's lost her job to an AI, and she uses some of this money to take her family to a botanical garden. They've never been on holiday before. The kids have never seen growing strawberry plants and like trees in the same way, and so she takes them there and things happen, and then we end up questioning AI technology, the way we would handle things, family, relationships. It's so good. I did do a solo review for this one, so I'll leave it linked below, but it was brilliant, and I would love to see it get a little bit more hype. Next up, we have The Lost Love Songs of Boise Sing by Ingrid Persaud, and this was published on the 25th of April and it's 544 pages, and this book was brilliant. We're following multiple women who have a stake, shall we say, in Boise Sing's life. Boise Sing was a real historical character and was set in the Caribbean. And these women, we sort of see how how they just interact with Boise Sings. And we see like these relationships grow and dim and change over the course of Boise Sings' life. And the great thing about this is it's centred around this man, but it's absolutely nothing really to do with men. It is all to do with women and their choices and the way that they view men and the world and the people around them and themselves. And it was just so good. Every woman was so unique and interesting in her own right, and I loved it from start to finish, and I could absolutely see this making the list. And finally on my list I have The Echoes by Evie Wilde. Again, one that I've read quite recently, and this one was published on the 1st of August and is 240 pages, and it's told over 2 timelines and sort of multiple perspectives. But ultimately it's about a woman who has moved from Australia, rural Australia, to London. Her partner dies and his ghost is one of the perspectives, one of the narrators, and we sort of uncover her life really, what happened to make her move to London, what happened in her childhood, and we also uncover what happened to the dead boyfriend. So yeah, it was just a really propulsive, addictive read. Evie Wilde has this way of keeping you on tenterhooks and wanting to know what happens next all the time, and the story as it unfolds is heartbreaking and tragic and shocking, and it was just Gemma catnip. And I am so excited to read more Evie Wilde after reading that, because it was top tier. So those are the 16 books I'm predicting. We'll see how many I get right. I did not do well last year. Did I get any right last year? I can't remember. Yeah, I tend to do better predicting the non-fiction. There we go. But yeah, I'm so excited to see what makes the list. I'd love to know what you think is going to make the list, if you agree with any of the books I've put on my list. If you've read any of them and have any thoughts, I'd love to know that. If you just want me to know that you are there but you don't want to leave a comment, then leave me any emoji you like. And I will leave my review for Hum here if you wanted to check that out, and I will be back with you very soon with another one. Cheers guys!